Inselmilkom, Sinjuri, ringrazzjakom li qed issegwu il-programm. Illum għal ġrajiet kurrenti sankellem lil Dr. Edward De Bono. L-intervista llum sa ssir bil-lingwa Ingliża biex nilħu lil dawk li preferu l-Ingliż u dawk li ma jifmux bil-Malti. Jekk tixtiequ issegwu lil Dr. De Bono bil-Malti fuq l-istess suġġetti tistgħu issegwuh b'mod konsistenti fuq Net Live ma' Robert Cremona. Thank you very much, Dr. De Bono, for joining us once again for our current affairs briefing in English. I'd like to start by speaking about the crime recently in Malta, which we've seen escalating, and the Hamrun incident. Can I refer to this incident where a defense argument blamed two police officers for escalating a violent situation? What are your thoughts as a legal expert on this?
Leah, I think that, first of all, we have to be very clear that this rampage of the Hamrun incident on the police is absolutely disgusting, abysmal. It should not have taken place. That is the basis of everything. But the question we should ask is why has this lawlessness in our country arrived at this rock bottom level? And I think the real reason is based on the lack, on the impunity that we have been living during these past 10 years. People think, in a way, that if some of our co-citizens are not paying the licenses and the citations which are being given because LESA has done something to forgive these people their dues, one would argue and say, why should I pay? Don't forget, the incident that was created in Hamrun was based on a police officer wanting to give a citation to an individual. That was the basis. I am pretty sure, psychologically, knowingly or unknowingly, the fact that people were hearing on the news, reading in the newspapers, that LESA were involved in a racket where a company which was leasing out cars to third parties was issuing citations on British or other foreign nationals and pocketing the money themselves instead of the national coffers. This, in the psyche of some people, would say, if they are getting off scot-free, why shouldn't I get off scot-free from this situation?
Do you think law enforcement in Malta is adequate?
I don't particularly believe that law enforcement is adequate. I still believe that there is a lot of patronage. I go to the minister to help me get out of a citation, or I go to a parliamentary secretary to help me get out of a license which I have to pay and which I think that I should not pay.
But do you
this situation...
do you think these are one-off cases, going to the minister or the parliamentary secretary?
No. Patronage in our country is rampant. We are south of Italy, we are like Spain, like Greece, like all the countries in the southern Mediterranean region, where people believe that going to a minister or as parliamentary secretary would give you leeway to do whatever you feel that you ought to do with impunity. And this is the tragic situation which we are currently living. The same thing with Identity Malta. You know what has happened during these past months, where people or foreigners who wanting to come to live in Malta through the various schemes that there are available on the island, were finding themselves in a situation, or whoever was organizing this situation, in registering these people onto residences which were owned by third parties and had no connection with these individuals wanting to come and live here. Stealing one's identity and registering individuals in other people's property is wrong. But how many officials close to Castile have been summoned to go to court to answer to their alleged crimes? You know who was summoned to go to court to defend himself in one of these cases which were brought to our attention? The person who was authorized by these people who had arranged the whole scheme, but was entrusted to put post boxes on these particular residents where these individuals would receive their correspondence. He was found guilty and was made to pay, I don't know how many hundreds of euros in a fine, and interdicted at the same time. When people see that the top brass who have organized this situation are not being indicted for crimes they have committed, and the little man is put in court, sent to court to answer to other people's crimes, this is just not correct.
And now we're sharing a service by Net News.
Wara l-iskandli kollha li kellna matul il-ġimgħat tas-sajf, skandli minn entitajiet li jaqgħu taħt ir-responsabilità tal-Ministeru tal-Intern, Byron Camilleri qed jonqos mhux biss milli jerfa' responsabilità politika, ma saħansitra milli jserraħ moħħ il-poplu Malti Wawċi. Dan intqal f'konferenza tal-aħbarijiet l-4 nofsinhar indirizzata mix-Shadow Ministers Darren Karabottu u Claudette Buttigieg kif ġie spjegat illi wara silenzju assolut minn ta' Camilleri, il-Ministru feġġ risposti studjati li aktar qajmu mistoqsijiet milli ċertezzi. Fost l-iskandli li nkixfu mill-avukat Jason Azzopardi hemm dawk fih dan l-Aġenzija Identità u l-Leża bir-risposta ta' Camilleri b'rabta mal-iskandlu tal-ID cards tkun illi l-Aġenzija sospendit persuna xhur ilu u li dan ifisser illi l-Ministru ma nfurmax lil poplu b'dak illi kien jaf illi kien għaddej. Ix-Shadow Minister Nazzjonalista Darren Karabot sostna li huwa disgustanti l-fatt illi il-Ministru jaħbi tal-informazzjoni miċ-ċittadini.
Meta inti tara Ministru li da jgħidlek illi kien jaf xhur ilu tal-identità, però ma kienx hu illi kixifha. Kellek il-Ministru jgħid li jisma' ma sarux spezzjonijiet fid-djar dwar l-indirizzi folots tal-persuni barranin irreġistrati, mela għalfejn ma tkellimx. Dawn kollha huma turija ta' nuqqasijiet serji mhux biss is-set ngħidu ta' azzjoni politika li diġà tkellimna fuqha, però hi nuqqas serju ta' li l-poplu tgħidlu kif inhi. Li inti taħbi huwa xi ħaġa li verament hija disgustanti sfortunatament tal-pajjiż u għalhekk ilna ngħidu xi mhux biss il-kwistjoni tal-identità, però hemm kwistjoni dwar il-pulizija, hemm kwistjoni dwar tista' tgħid entitajiet sħaħ inkluż il-leża illi t-tmexxija tagħhom sfortunatament qed tonqos milli tassigura l-ewwel nett il-bon ordni però fuq kollox illi jkollna tmexxija ġusta, trasparenti u serja illi tieħu l-azzjonijiet fil-mument li hemm bżonn.
Il-Deputat Nazzjonalista insista li Byron Camilleri qed juri nuqqas ta' tmexxija politika kif l-aħbarijiet qed jimtlow bi skandli li jaqgħu taħt il-portafol tiegħu. Minnaħa tagħha Shadow Minister Claudette Buttigieg saħqet illi l-Ministru Camilleri qed jissimbolizza nuqqas ta' viżjoni, ippjanar, governanza u nuqqas kbir ta' trasparenza. Hija spjegat illi pajjiżna qed jaffaċċja sitwazzjoni fejn entitajiet ta' importanza kbira qed jispiċċaw free for all. Tan fil-waqt illi il-Ministru mu juri ebda konvinzjoni, anzi sparixxa totalment għal sajf sieħ. Tanti appellat lil ħaddiema ta' rida tajba biex jersqu l-qudiem.
Il-fatt li hu jisparixxi u meta jiġi lura jitkellem qisu ma ġara xejn f'dan il-pajjiż huwa hu stess li qed jgħaddi messaġġ ta' impunità. Ta' messaġġ ta' isma' jiġri x'jiġri, toqgħodux tinkwetaw għax maħna ħanieħdu passi kontra ħadd. Għax fil-ebda ħin ma jkun qiegħed jagħti l-eżempju. Aħna ngħidu bil-Malti l-eżempju jkaxkar. U hawnhekk huwa każ sensittiv ħafna fejn huwa propju hekk. U għalhekk illum jien rġajt appellajt għal dawk il-persuni li naf li għandhom il-prinċipji u naf li jaħdmu fis-settur pubbliku maċ-ċivil u naħseb li minn għand dawn in-nies aħna qed nistennew illi jagħmlu kif jgħidu bl-Ingliż the right thing.
Francesco Catania, News.
And then it puts or creates a culture where if he can get away with it, I would get away with it as well. The thinking and the psychological effect that this has on people's psyche is tremendous. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, what has happened in the Hamroon debacle was precisely where these individuals must have said, listen, why is he giving me a citation when people at Leza were forgiving others from paying these amounts, and this particular company was pocketing these dues from third parties who lived abroad and had then no connection with Malta because the holiday would have come to an end. And most people would not talk about these citations.
Most people would just pay it and forget it.
And get on with it.
Yes.
Il-5 persuni li jinsabu mixlija li aggredew żewġ kuntistabli tal-Pulizija fil-Ħamrun inżammu taħt arrest preventiv. Christian Mansueto, Kurt Borch, Redemien Aquilina, Elton Borch u Erika Borch qed iwieġbu mhux ħatja li kkaġunaw ġrieħi gravi lil wieħed mill-kuntistabli u ġrieħi ħfief lit-tieni kuntistabli kif ukoll żammew lill-istess żewġ kuntistabli milli jagħmlu xogħolhom. Il-każ seħħ fil-21 ta' Settembru li għadda. Il-Pulizija qalet li kollox beda meta żewġ uffiċjali ħarġu ċitazzjoni minħabba karozza pparkjata fi stradarjali fil-Ħamrun u filmati li nxterdu fuq il-medja soċjali kienu esponew grupp ta' nies jargumentaw mal-Pulizija. L-avukati tad-difiża qed jgħidu li l-klijenti tagħhom ġew ipprovokati minn uffiċjal tal-Pulizija arroganti u li jaġixxew biksuħat. Fil-qorti, l-avukati għamlu s-sottomissjonijiet għal ħelsin mill-arrest u enfasizzaw li waħda mill-bodycams tal-uffiċjali kienet mitlufa. Il-Maġistrat Monika Vella minħa tagħha qalet li ma kienet qed issir l-ebda inkjesta maġisterjali brabta ma' dan l-inċident. Spjegat li l-provi setgħu jinżammu biss permezz tal-investigazzjonijiet tal-Pulizija li għadhom għaddejjin u esprimiet tħassib tagħha dwar l-għajbien ta' waħda mill-bodycams tal-Pulizija. Hija qalet li f'dan l-istadju bikri il-qorti tqisi li l-investigazzjoni tal-Pulizija għandhom ikomplu mingħajr xkiel u mingħajr biża ta' intraċċ ta' provi. Innotati li dan ma jfissirx li l-investigaturi kellhom ikaxkru saqajhom. Dan fil-waqt li sostniet li l-għajbien tal-bodycam jikkawża preġudizzju serju għax dan seta' jitfa' aktar dawl fuq dak il verament seħħ. Il-Maġistrat qalet li d-deċiżjoni fuq il-ħelsien mill-arrest ma taffettwax l-innoċenza jew le tagħhom u meta qiset kollox il-qorti ċaħdet it-talba għal ħelsien mill-arrest.
And what legal reforms would you suggest to prevent such incidents in the future?
I think the law reforms that have to be actually passed by the legislator are more stringent rules for people who do not obey police orders or are violent with police officials. I agree with the Minister that yes, there should be more stringent rules when people do not obey police orders, legitimate police orders. And I put an emphasis on legitimate, not the abuse of power of any police official who thinks because he's wearing an official's dress, he's able to insist on something which one would not have acted about. Or I insist on legitimacy. That is the most important thing. But definitely those two police officers were doing their duty. They felt that they should give a citation to that individual, and that individual should now answer for his alleged crimes.
We've met many times over the last few years, and we've spoken about corruption, these sort of cases, impunity, the rule of law. When do you think we're going to start seeing a change in this country?
I am not very happy with the situation. Taking the Daphne Caruana Galizia case, 7 years have passed, and yet we are not as yet seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Komplet il-kompilazzjoni fil-każ kontra l-aħwa George u Alfred De Giorgio, magħrufa rispettivament bħala ċ-Ċiniż u l-Fulu, kif ukoll Vince Muscat magħruf bħala l-Koħħu. It-tliet irġiel jinsabu akkużati bil-qtil tal-ġurnalista permezz ta' karozza bomba fis-16 ta' Ottubru li għadda. Matul is-seduta xedu wkoll numru ta' għaddasa li kienu involuti fit-tfittxija f'qiegħ il-baħar fil-Marsa minn żewġ tfittxijiet li saru fl-4 ta' Diċembru u fis-6 ta' Diċembru tas-sena li għaddiet. L-għaddasa elevaw 5 telefons ċellulari kif ukoll batteriji u holders ta' SIM cards. Sa dan it-tant sar magħruf li l-ġimgħa 20 ta' April se jsir l-aċċess fuq il-post fejn inqatlet Daphne Caruana Galizia fil-Bidnija ftit metri bogħod mir-residenza tagħha. Il-każ ikompli tlieta meta jsiru sottomissjonijiet dwar it-talba l-ħelsien mill-arrest tal-akkużati.
Most people know that the alleged conspirator to her assassination was not alone in that assassination. This was a crime which was concocted with the highest officials in Castile. These people have not as yet been indicted, they have not as yet been booked, they have not as yet been arrested, and it is high time that this is actually come to a close. It is something which I, thought about this week. Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Edinburgh, decided that on her first visit to our islands, she should go to the memorial of Daphne Caruana Galizia and put a bunch of flowers before the monument in her name. This throws a very strong message to us Maltese, the foreigners that are living in our country, that this is a decent country in actual fact, Things should be done in the right way. Which President of the Republic went to her memorial to put a bunch of flowers? Which President of the Republic or Prime Minister went to the place where she was blown up in smithereens? Which minister actually went to pay their respects to this brave woman who lost everything for her nation, for the truth? But the Duchess of Edinburgh thought otherwise. She wanted to make a statement. She wanted to show that that is the decent way how people should act and react. And this is the biggest problem which I feel our government is not responding to. He has not yet come to terms that the highest officials in government of ex-Prime Minister Joseph Muscat were involved in such a heinous crime that they are trying to put it under the cover.
The case has drawn out now, it's 7 years, and we still haven't seen closure on the case.
No.
What are your thoughts on that? When will we have closure?
Many
people are waiting.
I hope today, not tomorrow. But there's no date yet set up for the trial to be heard in court, in the criminal court. So we hope for the best during this year or early next year.
I note the word hope. So are you hopeful?
Defense lawyers have always tricks up their sleeve to postpone, to delay, in the interest of their clients. But it's high time that the Commissioner of Police, the justice system, the Attorney General actually act in favor of justice for Daphne.
Thank you. I'd like to focus on traffic, congestion, closed roads, construction. Malta's traffic is becoming a major concern. From a legal standpoint, what do you think is causing all these issues and nothing's being done about it?
Leah, even over here, you see, there was a high policy decision by the actual current Minister of Finance, who believed and still believes that our country needs an influx of foreign workers coming to the country. I am sure that we need some of these workers that are coming to the country, which are helping our infrastructure move forward. But when in 10 years, our population has increased with circa 100,000 people, that is 20% of the population, this obviously rings bells. Because these people come here, they rent houses, so we've got excessive building going on all around us. They buy cars or they rent cars, apart from the fact that the tourists who come to visit us also rent out cars. And what's the conclusion? Obviously, congestion. So, when our infrastructure wasn't geared for this influx of people, I would say not only in the road system, but also in our drainage system, in our electricity system. In my hometown, in St. Julian's, this summer, throughout July and August, and I shall include also September, but basically over a period of 2-3 months, I had, till now, 24 interruptions in my electricity supply. This obviously causes damage. Causes damage to appliances, causes damages to the electrical system itself. And yet, when we're supposed to have our system working more efficiently, I expect that a Western European country should not go through this disaster year in, year out. And no long-term solution has been found in the circumstances.
There's no planning, it's
not
obviously.
at all. Nothing has been planned. And this is going to eventually, if our drainage system is not coping with our infrastructure, what will happen? This could be a cause of medical problems yet to come. So yes, the congestion in the streets and in the roads is not only on account of road maintenance, that is part of it.
It's an impact of the overpopulation.
The overpopulation. And government doesn't seem that he wants to address it. And yet we still have contractors building hundreds and hundreds of apartments when it is known that we have actually enough room space in our country. And yet we continue building hotels all over the place. Now there's the DB Hotel being built in St. George's Bay. As a matter of fact, in Valletta, through some statistics issued by the central bank, there are enough hotels to cater for the needs of the people who come and visit us and want to live in Valletta. So and people still keep on investing in hotels in Valletta or wherever. So one has to find a balance with this. I'm not saying one can interfere in the way one invests his money. But the point is, if we have an oversupply, a glut of these properties being developed, this will not only affect our environment because there's a lot of pollution in the air. There's a lot of annoyance to neighbors with the machinery which is used in the early afternoons. So something has to be taken and done holistically. There has to be a whole plan moving this country forward for the next 10, 15 years. I think that the solution is that we should go for high-end tourism. We have the capability and the capacity that we should do so, because high-end tourism gives you more value added.
We've been saying that for many years,
Nothing
but
has been
it's
done.
never happened.
Nothing
really.
has been done.
It's never happened, and it's very evident from the people you see in restaurants, the way they're ordering. I mean, and the restaurant owners complaining also that they're finding it a struggle to make ends meet.
The truth is that because, as you're stating, the type of tourism which is coming to the island is low end, we are full of these hamburger outlets or outlets which provide fast foods, and this situation is not correct, not on. It has to change.
Thank you for watching our current affairs briefing in English, where we spoke with Dr. Edward De Bono. Should you have any comments, any queries, please send them by WhatsApp on the number that appears on the screen. Should you wish to watch Dr. De Bono speaking about the same topics in Maltese, please watch NetLive with Robert Cremona, where he's a very consistent guest. Thank you for watching. I'll be with you after the commercial break. Inselmilkom, sinjuri, grazzi li qed issegwu il-programm illum. L-intervista ma' Dr. Edward De Bono għal ġrajiet kurrenti tagħna bl-Ingliż sassir bil-lingwa Ingliża għal dawk li jippreferu jitkellmu bl-Ingliż u dawk li ma jifhmux bil-Malti. Jekk tixtiequ ssegwu lil Dr. De Bono bil-Malti, segwu NetLive ma' Robert Cremona kuljum fej Dr. De Bono huwa mistieden ta' spiss. Do you think that Malta is an easier entry point into Europe for third country nationals? Because many of them seem to be coming to Malta and then arranging to go to, for example, Italy or Germany after a while.
No, most of the people that come to our island, particularly these immigrants which coming from third world countries, do not want to stay in Malta. They stay here for a short time and off they go to Europe. I thought you were referring to the other type of people that are registering to get nationality and residence in Malta.
Well, there's two types, I would imagine.
Yes, there are two types. Now, this week or last week, if I'm not mistaken, the Advocate General of the European Union said that our system is according to European law, that is of accepting third parties coming to our country on a nationality basis, and his advice to the European courts is that our system should be acceptable in Europe. Obviously, the situation is not yet completely finalized because the European court still has to decide about it. But the Advocate General has stated, the European Union Advocate General, that our system in our law is acceptable according to European Union rules.
So in that case, Malta is not an easy entry point. It's
for those people who
Yes.
want to come to Malta to buy the nationality. The question then comes and rises, is it correct for somebody who has no attachment to the island, but is using the island as a pied-à-terre to have a European passport, doing so? I think,
Which also relates to affordability.
yes,
Not
of
everyone
course.
can do it.
No, these are the super rich who can afford paying millions for themselves and their families in getting a European passport. Whether this is ethically correct or not, I have my reservations, but I understand that economically it could be beneficial also to the island when these high-end individuals come over to get the Maltese passport as using Malta as a pied-à-terre for Europe.
Thank you for answering that. Do you believe that the public have a right to functional infrastructure?
I think it's essential. I don't think we should have an infrastructure where our electricity goes bust every other day. In St. Julian's area, where I live, in my house, as I was telling you, between July and September, our electricity supply went off for 23 times. That's a lot. If I was in India, in Mumbai or Calcutta, maybe it is the acceptable thing. But in Malta, with its GDP, part of the European Union, getting our supply cut short is totally unacceptable.
I've been to India for long periods of time. It never happened to me when I was there. So I do have to say that.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the current state of the commercial courts at the moment?
I am in favor that a commercial court be set up, because this would prove that if it is, and this is the whole question, worked out with efficiency, that this would be more beneficial to trade in general. The problem is that there's an underlying problem to all this. Have we got the infrastructure to actually be able to do this? Why? Because the manpower, the staff in the courts is not enough to cater with the demands of the judges and the magistrates and the public in general.
So you mean this will be put into place with the same resources
Exactly.
as we currently have,
Exactly.
without any additional resources?
We need additional resources in court to actually have more efficiency. I got some statistics where I was told that till August 2024, July actually, 2024, before the magistrates' criminal courts, there were 8,401 pending cases being heard by one magistrate. 2,588 were traffic citations. 5,558 were decisions from the Commissioner of Justice in appeal. Another magistrate has 1,483 cases of domestic violence. Another magistrate, a district magistrate, has 1,347 cases pending. In the civil law sector, 5 judges have over 500 cases pending before them. Another 6 judges have between 400 and 500 cases each pending before them. Before the Constitutional Court, there are 323. In this situation, the judges, and most of the judges, are doing their utmost to get the figures and the numbers down. Actually, they are deciding, most of them, more cases than what are being filed in the current year. So, but if the resources of the staff are lacking, they can never reach sustainability in their work, because you need typists, you need not stenographers, you need people who help you out in your research. And if these are not available, then obviously the work will slacken.
So you're saying it's unrealistic that we can put this into place with the current resources we have?
No, what I'm saying is that it will not work unless this infrastructure is built around this new commercial court. But not only, it does not only apply to the commercial court, it should apply to all courts, both in civil jurisdiction and criminal jurisdiction.
So for this commercial court to work, what specific reforms would you advocate?
More staff, more judges to man the system, judicial assistance, helping the judges to come to a quick judgment by preparing the research that they would have done. If that would happen, then yes, it would be a very good idea, which would have been floated by the Minister of Justice.
But obviously, the way it is, it's not something you can put in place overnight. It needs a lot of planning.
It needs time, planning, resources. At one time, and this has been mooted for a very long time, they were also considering that the courts have to have a system where the people who actually, the deputy registrars, the people who work in the infrastructure of the court, it should be a closed shop, not being moved from one department to the other and dismantling the infrastructure that exists. Because when you've got people who know the system and have been there working for 5-10 years, then finding themselves in another ministry, it brings havoc to the whole system.
So you think it should be like a fresh team, a fresh start?
I would say not a fresh start. I would say that we should employ more people in the sectors which help the judges and magistrates in their work, and if need be, increase more judges and magistrates. Because our workload today with the European Union, with the influx of 100,000 people, this means that there are more cases or lawsuits being filed regularly on account of the increase in the population. Apart from the fact that with the obligations of the European Union, with the legislation which is continually being issued from Europe, this also judges have to be made aware and have cognizance of what is actually taking place on the European front.
If this is put into place, do you believe it would attract more foreign investment into Malta?
Yes, undoubtedly. The more efficient our commercial law system becomes more efficient, then, yes, this would be a positive impact for more investment into the island.
As we draw towards the end of the programme, I'd like to focus on transparency and corruption in the government and the style of governance. What are your thoughts today?
We haven't even started. Unfortunately, on the corruption level, as I have intimated before, there's a culture of impunity, a police commissioner who seems not to be bent on actually moving forward or investigating the alleged crimes which are happening around us or have been happening around us. And unfortunately, this culture has become so ingrained in our people that lawlessness could become the order of the day. And this would be tragic. I hope that there will be a reversal in attitudes and that people would actually see that we are moving forward in this level. 2 days ago...
I think people see it, but the problem is, you mentioned the police commissioner. He's been named in the lack of action for a number of years now.
Let's give you an example for people to understand the difference in mentality. When Joseph Muscat, corrupt Joseph Muscat, when Keith Kembry, when Mr. Fern, when Professor Shikluna, and all that were accused criminally were summoned to court, these individuals, contrary to what would have happened to me and to you, walked in court, Joseph Muscat, within inverted commas, triumphantly. And the others just walked in as if nothing has taken place, as if they went to have a coffee in the cafeteria, in the court cafeteria. When the 4 people indicted with the Hamroon incident were brought to court, these were shackled with police cars passing through Republic Street, stopping in front of the main door of the court and whisked into court because these are hard criminals. Don't you think that the public who is listening to us today and saw this on TV would not have realized that this is a shambles in our democracy? Is this correct that 4 individuals who did wrong, beat up 2 policemen who were doing their duty, were all shackled, and Muscat, who was responsible, or who is responsible, for our hospitals losing 400 million, this guy can go into court as if he's going to have a coffee. Don't you think that this situation is blatantly, obviously not on an equality of arms between the 2 situations? And this is what the people, this is what the public will never accept and do not understand. Why? Because these people were in authority. They think that they can take us for a ride, even in our justice system. Why isn't the state advocate taking action civilly against these people who robbed our nation 400 million? And that small guy from Sigewi who was used to put post boxes in the houses of those people who were to receive their notification for the residency permit.
So you're saying something like a handyman? That's what
handyman, yeah.
A handyman.
That guy was taken to court, made to pay a huge fine, correctly so, but the people who organized this crime, why weren't they taken to court? Why were they left running as if nothing has happened? I myself sent to the police 2 or 3 weeks ago 2 contracts of a client of mine which are still in shell form in Gozo, where these 2 Chinese individuals were registered in these 2 apartments, as if they were residing there. When I wrote to the police about this and Identity Malta to check this situation, I said, there's not even water and electricity in these premises. So how were these registered there? And I told them that if I buy a property and having got water and electricity, no permit would be issued. So how is it possible that these people in from Identity Malta were registered there? The answer was, this was a mistake, this happened for 2 years, we are investigating. Fine. But this is a shambles of the way our system actually works. It's unacceptable that there is this disparity, this inequality, where the little man is taken to court and indicted, and the one who thinks he is strong, impossible to get to, powerful, having people behind him who are ready to compromise our nation, try and get out of this scot-free. They won't.
A very difficult question perhaps to close off with regard to all these cases we've spoken about, the lack of transparency and the style of governance. Do you think we'll see a U-turn or we'll see a light in the right direction?
I think Labour has outdone its purpose, and it's time for them to go in opposition. They have to regroup, they have to go back to their intrinsic values, they have to find themselves anew, because they're lost. They are not acting in the people's interest, but in the interest of the few around Castile.
Do you still think that the Labour Party represents the working classes?
It lost that as soon as Joseph Muscat came to power. The working classes can't find recourse in the Labour Party because the Labour Party is there for the big tycoons, for the big contractors, for the ones that are capable of buying all and sundry.
Thank you very much, Dr. De Bono, for joining us once again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for watching our program tonight, our current affairs briefing in English with Dr. Edward De Bono. Our number appears on the screen for you to send any comments or queries by WhatsApp. I look forward to seeing you next week at the same time. My name is Leah Hogg for Net TV. I wish you a good evening.